I mean, it might look good on you. You don't have much face
Oh, that's right. I got
left
limited.
to go. There's the real estate's limited. It's finite.
What if I never shaved because underneath here is nothing but tattoos?
There's like all the members of NSYNC in like script in cursive and calligraphy. You have like Joey Fatone.
There you go.
Or that's the NSYNC or Backstreet Boys. I
don't know.
I know the members of each, so it's
Some
a
new kids on the
depressing.
block. Old school.
God, that is old school. Hanging Tough was my favorite. Let's
That's
get into
right.
these amps now, because people have been asking for amps.
Yay.
So we're going to break down the Fender amp line on what we think, if you're spending your stimulus money, sort of from, there's a bunch in there. We sort of skipped. We went from like low to we just kind of like started jumped up a little bit, because we want to get to that stimulus. We all know about like the hot rods and the great amps.
Yes.
We're not going to talk too much on that in detail, but actually we'll talk a little bit because they're pretty awesome. But let's just go through the whole line of what we think we would do after we go through them.
Sure.
So what would be our sort of, let's skip the very bottom of the barrel and let's go like lead up. What would you get as a basic entry Fender amp?
We're going to jump right to the Champion 50 XL.
That is a shop favorite here. We love that amp.
It's so good.
It's $229 right now.
Yes.
Next week will probably be $239. I'm kidding. I think they've raised prices enough.
$1,000. No.
God, one day somebody's going, I have a vintage Champ 50
I got
XL
this
from
thing.
2020.
From the mid 2000s. Yeah.
It's worth a ton, isn't it? No. No, it has a great clean tone. It's not a tube amp. This is one of the few non-tube amps. We're skipping like the beginning Champ stuff. This one sounds great.
It does sound great.
I prefer this to some of the modeling ones with all the different.
I absolutely do.
Because I'm a simple man. I'm not smart. And this one just kind of, it gets you the good Fender clean tone. It's got some nice sort of crunchy overdrives in there. And that's it. It's easy to use.
I hope Derek like puts some Leonard Skinner, just the riff when you say I'm a simple man.
God, it's
Dun,
funny.
dun, dun, dun.
The fact that you caught that it shows your brilliance.
It does.
It's like Mozart of YouTube.
If you want to hear that Champ 50 XL, In the Blues just did a cool video where he actually is using that amp in
smart.
a band setting to see like if you could gig with it. I won't tell you the outcome in case you go watch this video, but
Okay, that's cool.
if you want to hear it, go check it out.
Now, sort of jumping into the line a little bit more, you have the Hot Rod Deluxe series.
Sure.
Wonderful. That's sort of like the bread and butter Fender. They sell more in the Blues Juniors. Crushing. Like those are some of the best amps you can get out there. Those are all going to sit you in that sort of $500 range, and like, plus or minus on some of them. And the prices are changing a bit. It's fluid, but hopefully we're steady for a bit. But wonderful amps. That's if you're buying an amp and you've never bought an amp, get a Hot Rod Deluxe.
And those are all sort of like, you don't really need pedals. You got clean, you got dirty, you got reverb. Done.
And the dirty's not terrible.
They got way better with the version 4.
They used to be bad.
Yes.
And we didn't like them. We wouldn't even carry them. And then it's like, whoa, what happened? These are really good. And if you can find one, get it, because there's not many out there. They're snapped up immediately.
Yes.
I think we just ran out again.
We did.
It's like my socks. Like when you realize you open the drawer and there's no.
Where are the Blues Juniors? God.
I'll wear those socks again with the lightning bolts on them. It's depressing.
Yeah.
But let's jump up now. Let's get into some of those fun things that have tubes in them.
Ooh.
A new one just came out from Fender.
5 watts of fury.
5 watts of fury. If you're in an all Rush cover band, this is not the amp for you.
This is probably not the one.
Not going to get it done with that drummer.
The 68 custom vibro Champ.
No, this amp just came out, if I'm not wrong.
It's really cool. I just played it for the first time.
It's like $749?
I believe it is.
That's a cool amp. I have not gotten to play it yet. I've just heard you guys all like fingering around on it. And
So I was pretty darn impressed. It sounds great. It's so fun looking. I kind of just want one just to like sit on my table at home.
It's not that big, but it's pretty. It's a silver face.
Jamming at home, recording, and maybe even a gig where you're using like in-ear, where it's mic'd and you're not hearing stage volume. It's in-ears or something like that, like a church thing. Pretty awesome. You can crank it. It's not that loud. So
see, that's cool.
That is really cool.
It's got reverb. It's got vibrato in it.
Yes.
It sounded good from what I heard. So I'm
great.
excited about that. Now let's sort of shift gears again.
Yes.
Let's jump into that thing that's not a tube amp.
Ooh.
But it looks like it's a tube amp.
It does.
So Fender's got a couple of those tone masters.
Yes.
There's tone kings, whatever they're called. What are they called again?
Tone master.
I don't know. The tone masters. I get so confused now. Because when they first came out, I was like, tone kings. I was like, no,
I know we kept calling them the wrong things.
That's an amp line.
Yeah.
But the tone, they got the deluxe and the twin. And then they have them in multiple versions, like the black and the brown face now, or the brown covered and whatnot. These are modeling amps.
Yes.
These are not tube amps. They weigh nothing. They are built, I mean, who are they built for, do you think?
I mean,
because they're not cheap.
They're not cheap. I totally see on a gig the appeal, because like you said, they're way lighter. You wouldn't have to worry about tubes breaking, you know, or malfunctioning or needing to be replaced. There's an attenuation built in. So if you have a sweet spot, but it's too loud for most clubs that you're in, you just dial it down to, you know, 3 watts or whatever it is, and you're good to go. They also have line outs.
And see, I was hoping you would sort of say that, because I think who this is for is the gigging musician that wants the look and sound of a tube amp without the weight and hassle of a tube amp.
Most people would never even know that it wasn't a tube, except for the one little thing in the corner. You could take it off.
Take it off if you want to.
No one knows.
I think 99%, because I saw Kingfish playing with one, and he's doing some Fender event. I was like, oh,
I'd gig with one.
I would gig with one in a heartbeat.
All day long.
It's now if I was choosing between that and a tube amp, it'd be tricky, because like, you know, the twin one is $1,000,
right,
and I can get a tube amp at $1,000 or right here and there. So it's tricky. You gotta say, what do you want? Do you want the attenuation, the DAW ability to go straight into your DAW, which is also really cool. You have to factor in not weighing 8,000 pounds.
It's also a weird thing to me, like you're getting close to money where you could get a modeling thing that does sort of every amp sound.
I know.
As opposed to this one, I mean, it
does it really well. Though.
Really well.
It sounds like a freaking Fender Twin or a Fender Deluxe.
And they take pedals pretty darn well. We've messed around with pedals on them, and so
it takes pedals great. Yeah. That's right. When Kingfish was playing with pedals, I was like, wow. Once he hit the overdrive, it sounded even better.
Awesome. Yeah.
It sort of sat in there.
Agreed.
Okay, let's jump into the we're gonna go into sort of these vintage spec tube amps from here on out.
So what if we had that same $1,000 and we did not want a modeling amp that looked like a tube amp, we wanted an actual tube amp?
68 Princeton.
Done.
I think that's right there at $999, same price. It's silver face, 100% tubes. It sounds great.
It sounds fantastic.
It's now we'll get into the 65 Princeton later, but it's a different sound.
It is.
I think entirely. It's a little bit more overdriven.
Yep.
Centric.
It's got that whole negative feedback thing going on. I think the speaker is
That reminds me of my mother. When you say that, I'm like, oh.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Here it comes. Nothing I do is good enough.
There you go. Hit a nerve there.
Whenever I hear the word negative feedback, it just gets me. I'm like, all right.
Oh yeah, I've had that.
So then right above that, we're at the 65 Princeton, and that's not. It's only $100 more.
It is only $100 more.
It's a totally different amp too.
I would say so.
This is if you want that glassy Princeton, not a ton of headroom, but just right around 4.5, it starts to break up.
Right.
And but it's very the glass is what I'd say. I love them.
Yes, I think they're great too. I mean, they're both great. And again, I think that big difference, a lot of that difference is the speaker in those two amps. The Jensen versus the Celestion.
I know it's because like there's a warmth to the 68 and a little bit more glass 65. I love warm and gooey and muddy, but for some reason I like the 65 a little better myself. It's just it's a person. It's getting that Ryan Adams.
Yes.
Part
of me thinks that probably that amp, that wattage probably sits better and cuts through better in a mix. The 65 as opposed to the 68.
Well, it's just so different than what we're going to fall into some of the other ones next with like the 65 Deluxe when we get to that.
Yes.
It's just so different to me than that, which they look the same, just slightly bigger. But let's get into the 68 Custom Deluxe now. So this is what, at $1,249?
Yes.
And so that's a great amp.
It is a great amp.
That's now the vibro they had that they discontinued was one of the best.
Vibrolux, yeah, that was cool. 210s.
Oh yeah, the Vibrolux, that was insane. They stopped making it because no one was buying it really, and one of the best selling Fender amps, like reissues they made.
That's true.
Killer amplifier. Yeah, somebody just came and bought, like we had like a last ones just sort of sitting around. Like,
oh my god, a bunch because we love them. Yeah.
You have one? I'm like, yeah. Oh, and these are discontinued. I was like, I didn't know that, and like, oh, I should have kept that thing. That's a really good amp. But so anyway, the 68 Custom Deluxe, again, it's very similar to the 68 Princeton in the way it works to me. All the the vibrato and the reverb work in both channels, which is different if you're running two guys or if you want that different tonality.
What's cool about that, right, is your vintage channel is more like what a Silverface, Deluxe reverb would be. The custom channel has a bassman tone stack takes your pedals even better. It's got the whole negative feedback thing going on too for more touch sensitivity.
Yes,
according to
it's a good amp.
I used to own one of those and played it.
I didn't know
quite a lot.
But then a new one just came out, the 68 Custom Pro. And that's limited at $12.99, so $50 more than what we just talked about. Tell me about this one.
40 watts.
Ooh.
It's got a Neo cream back in it. So it sounds fantastic. So
awesome.
I love creambacks. And it's really light. So if you want a little more oomph and a really light package that really is about the same size as the Deluxe.
And I find this whole thing like pretty fun because I remember being like a kid of the 90s and whatnot, and all the Guitar Shop guys scoffed at the silver faces. Like, oh, you don't want that. You want a real vintage. You want a black one or like, you know, this. You don't want a silver. And so now, but the silver face is like the thing now.
Drip edge, baby. Yeah.
People come and do that. Have you seen like a real 68 before? I'm like, yeah, there's one. I had it taken apart, literally behind the cameras. There's a 68 taken apart that we were messing with. Just that's what we do because when we're bored, which never really happens. But no, it's just fun that the fad of like is gone of like dissing on these silver because they're good.
Yeah, they're good.
They're cool amps and like they're old now.
That's right.
And so Fender's re-releasing. I mean, they're for goodness sake, they're re-releasing like 90s versions guitars this year. Like, which is pretty funny.
For long, they'll be re-releasing those, the push-pull master volume, like the Silverface twins and stuff.
God, when they do like the Evil Twin re-release. Because I had an Evil Twin and someone stole it from me.
In 2030. That's right.
I know, it's like it was so heavy and so loud. And I recorded tons of music with it. I loved it. People talk trash on it. It was a great amp. Okay, so let's get into 65 Deluxe. This is probably the most popular and one of the most played, Fender amps.
I would say so.
And this is not getting the custom shop handwire ones. I'm still talking about this is the standard production one. Wonderful amp.
They sound so good.
I have one myself. I a lot of my working, touring, gigging gigs life was this.
For a while, I thought yours was an actual old one because it looks so beat up and it sounds so good. I thought, Baxter's got an awesome
no, it's a circuit board right there. Same old. No,
yeah,
Fender, they knocked out the thing. It's a great sound amp. I've played the original ones quite a bit, but this one sounds like this one holds its own with it.
Sometimes you play an original one and it's like, oh, this one's not, and it's a lot of factors, but yeah.
But we've talked buyer beware with vintage amps. It's different than vintage guitars, and a lot of times they sound really bad.
They just need some love most of the time, but yeah.
Or they've had too much love and nothing's original inside.
That is often
It's a different transformer, totally different tubes, and we've changed all the pots and caps, and everything's different.
Totally
the speaker's not original either. Like, wait, I'll just buy a new one from the custom team. And then the creme. Oh, anyway, 65 Deluxe. That's just it does. It has that warmth, that little bit of that milkiness. The headroom's not super high on it. You want to break up some, it does that for you. Unlike the 65 Deluxe. That's got headroom for ages. This one's going to be right at $16.99. The Deluxe was right at $13.99.
Yes.
That's how much that was. So for a few $100s more, you get the twin. This is the sort of Cadillac of the Fender tube line. They've it's loud.
It's very loud.
It's heavy.
Very clean.
It's very clean. It sounds amazing though.
It does sound. Nothing really sounds.
When you're
like
playing
that.
those sort of Jimi Hendrixy like double stops, it's like it's got that sort of milk that you're thinking about in your head that you want. It's loud though. Did I mention it's heavy? This is not the amp for you if you're ever planning on gigging. I feel like it just doesn't make sense in today's. Like, I mean, it's wonderful if you're going to sit at the church or but if you're going to be moving this around. Maybe
not the thing you want to drag everywhere.
Don't get me wrong. I don't move anything around now. It's been COVID stuff. I wanted to like hide it with a yawn so nobody cancels us on the COVID message.
Yeah.
But I like two rocks and like things that are really heavy. That's not stimulus price range.
No. Unless you get like 8 kids, then maybe.
God, if I would have had more kids. I just got the letter. Like I think we just opened it last night. From I'm like, oh, you're gonna get some money. I think I was like, that's cool. Yeah. Maybe. They said maybe. It was like a maybe. It was like a government. It's like, just kidding. We don't know. We're still looking into it. I was like, that's cool. I got a letter that it might do something. I doubt it. Yeah. So there's still the I'm leaving out one amp. It's the Super.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
The Super Reverb.
Yeah, that's my jam.
That's pretty sweet.
I left it out there. It's right in there with the twin.
I didn't even know. So if you, I mean, you know, the music that a lot of us love, the good old, the Marcus Kings of the world and stuff like that. The sound of a lot of that sort of Southern jam is
a
super
super
reverb.
And they're loud as well.
410s of goodness.
Oh, I left out one more.
Oh.
I'm gonna make Derek mad.
Oh.
59 bassman.
Oh.
Like
We got one of those sitting behind the couch.
I know. It's like I always have one of those around.
Another amp I owned and played extensively.
Now these two are like totally different, but totally the same.
Totally the same and yet totally
They're like
different.
they're pretty much both like just like a bunch of speakers. Let's put 4 speakers in this thing. Let's put 3 speakers. Let's get as many as we can get in here. But one's like the reverb monster.
Yeah. It's funny because younger me who had a bassman, I thought, oh, so like a super reverb is going to be just like this, but with reverb. It's not even, no. Totally
And they're
beasts.
both really cool.
They're both awesome.
I mean, if I had to pick one, I just, because I'm a reverb junkie, I'd get the super reverb.
I will say the Bassman's the only amp I've ever had with no reverb that I didn't miss it in.
Yes.
Because it does this weird like swirl thing with the 410s. Like you feel, it tricks you. It's almost like there is reverb.
It sounds like there's just a slight bit like slap back.
Yeah.
Like room splash
So
or something
cool.
in there. It's an amazing amp. And it's one of those sort of unsung heroes. It's not as heavy as the Twin either.
No, because
it's like-
there's no reverb time.
And it went, that reverb's not that heavy. It's
not.
It's really, that's like, it's something, the transform in the Twin is just ridiculous.
Well, it's 85 watts versus 45 watts.
And the Bassman's just, it has a magical,
Something awesome about the Bassman. Yeah.
it's just, and they look cool too. If you want tweed.
Lacquered tweed.
So there's a lot of choices here. And this is a lot of work for Derek to edit. I just realized as we're talking through all these, like, oh, I got to pull this. And like, that's just part of the fun of being from Akron. You're used to living in a windowless room in the back there.
Is that because he's from Akron?
I don't know.
So if Derek wasn't from Akron, we'd let him have windows?
No,
That's the moral of this video.
not at all. I mean, that's kind of it. I think that's kind of like, that's, you can like, you might be going a little bit over in some of those, but not much. We tried to stay.
You'd be close in all those.
And we kind of cover like a lot of, there's so many Fender amps. I just realized
It makes you realize how many, and there's so many good Fender amps.
Because I would play any one of those as my primary amp. Maybe not a couple. There's like, I do want the tubes in it for me.
I want tubes.
But that's just,
And it'd be hard if your only amp was the 5-watt, the little vibro champ.
but I could live with that if I wasn't gigging.
Yeah. Playing around the house.
I don't have many friends. I just play alone anyway.
It's fine. So you'd be fine.
Yeah, so any of those I could play, but there's so many more we didn't mention.
Yes.
It gets absurd, and like from like some of the really high end ones to a lot of those ones that are sort of in that really entry point. But if you're a stimulus and you got money and you want to spend on guitar and amp, that's where you got to sort of weigh.
Yes.
Like that's why that Champ 50 XL is not a bad sort of start. But don't get me wrong, if I had the money and I'm spending, let's say, $2,000, I would look hard at like a deluxe reverb and then a Ventera.
Or you could go all out Bassman or super reverb and a Squire
Classic vibe.
classic vibe.
Or let's flip it. Let's say you get an American Pro 2 and a Champ 50 XL. And that sort of gives you, and that way you have your Cadillac guitar and you got your pretty good amp there. That's going to get you through for a while until you can get to the, you're not going to be able to probably go American Pro 2 and Twin. And then you're spending a lot of money.
Unless you have 8 kids. Again.
Unless you had 8
Take
kids.
their stimulus. They won't know they're kids.
They don't get any of it. That's it. I'm leaving though. I'm
All
not,
right.
I'm going
And on that note, hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you don't miss videos in the future. We'll see you guys next time.